Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be discussing finding a flat in Germany. Let's get into this video. So, just to give you a little background, I recently moved, well, about a year ago, to this flat that I'm in now. So I pretty much have a good idea about what it is to find a flat. Since I moved to Germany in 2017, I have moved, okay, let's say the first time I came, then, okay, when I was a student, I moved twice. Then I moved again for work, and then I moved. So what am I at? 5. I moved 5 times in the last 4 years. It's stressful at best, but I hope after you look at this video, if you're thinking about moving within Germany, or you just want to know what it is like to move in Germany, you would learn something new. So, firstly, you need to look at where it is you need to move to, and this also works for students. I touched a little bit about it on my video about moving to Germany, but you need to first look at where you will be living. If it's a big city, the first thing you need to know is big city is big money, which simply means the rent is much higher in bigger cities, obviously, a much higher demand. So you have to then take a look at what are the accessible points or where in the city you want to live, because obviously you can decide if you want to live near the inner city, near the outer city. It depends on, like, for example, if your university is near the northern part, maybe you want to get a flat near the northern part of the university. If your office, let's say, is closer to the western part of the city, maybe you want to get somewhere closer to that. So all these things kind of matter. But honestly, if you're living in a big city, you'll just be lucky to get a place. But you will understand more as we get into it. So the next thing I have on the list is to look at the prospects, where to find possible opportunities. So first you have the online sources, which would be like Zoo, eBay Kleinanzeigen, Immobilien Scout. Then you can go to a realtor, which is you go to a real estate agent and they have all the rental units that they're in charge of, or maybe they can recommend you to somebody else in another area that can help you out. So that's another way. And I guess those are the two main ways that people find a flat, and the other one is by word of mouth. This somehow, especially if you're working, tends to be the best one. Because often, especially in bigger cities, people would like give flats to people who they know, kind of thing. Like if you know somebody, you'll get in. So there's that. So finding the flat finding a means to find the flat is probably the easiest part. Then the next thing you want to do before you actually go to any of those appointments to see apartments, you should already know beforehand what it is you're looking for in an apartment, what it is you must have, and what it is you really would like to have. So for example, for me, a must-have for me were finished floors and finished walls. Now, I know you're wondering, what do you mean finished floors and finished walls? This is a thing. In Germany, and maybe it's also in Europe, but I know for sure in Germany, they don't always have finished floors, meaning that there is no laminate on the floors, or it could be that it's just concrete and whoever comes in, they would put down vinyl or carpeting, and then when they leave, they take it with them. So finished floors was something that I needed, as well as finished walls. Just like the floors, people put down their own carpet, laminates, whatever. They do the same to the walls. So people would either put wallpaper. I've seen many instances where people had wallpaper and they would have ripped it out. And so you're left with like this disgusting looking glue mess that really, you can't paint it unless you plan to go in there and sand away all of the glue. So you have to put wallpaper in there. And then it becomes really tricky because then you need to also take it when you're going, because the landlord doesn't want to be responsible for it. So I said finished floors, finished walls. Another thing for me is to have a modern bathroom. And I know you're thinking, Raquel, why you need a modern bathroom? When I was looking for this flat, I cannot tell you how disgusting some of those bathrooms were. Like, people are very old fashioned here, and a lot of people have not renovated their places. So I've seen places that had blue bathroom finishings. Now let me finish. Like, before you judge me, the bathtub was blue with a matching sink that was blue. The toilet was blue. The tiles were blue. The windowsill was blue. No, I'm sorry, but no, it's no. Whatever your wants, you need to really make a list of what you must have and what you kind of want to have. Because when you see places, you're not guaranteed that it will have everything on your list. But sometimes, especially in larger cities, it's so competitive to find a flat. At this point, you just really need to just the must-haves is what will be necessary. And if you get the others, it'll be a plus, you know? Another thing quick thing about like the inclusions in the flat. In Germany, do not expect to find a flat with a kitchen in it. I said what I said. So while there are some flats where the landlord they've already installed the kitchens, it's not very common. So very often you will find flats without a kitchen. So for me, that was not a must-have because you can always buy a used kitchen and install it yourself. Yes, I said install it myself. I installed my kitchen myself. I'm very proud of it, actually. Very often, if somebody was living in the flat before, they would be willing to sell the kitchen to you, and that's completely normal. You also will not find cupboards. That's also not so common to find in the flat, and for sure furniture. Like, no. Visiting the apartment. So let's say you've already made an appointment, you already spoke to the people who own the flat, or you spoke with your real estate agent and they give you a date, where to go, when to be. Firstly, be on time, or even ahead of time. Germans are always on time. If you're from the Caribbean, like me, you know we're always late. So get there ahead of time. Make sure you can get a park, or if you're taking the bus, like you have enough time to walk from the bus stop to the location. But just be there ahead of time. This shows a good perception. And when you get there, you should ask very strategic questions, especially if the flat is finished, it's not completely empty. You need to know what is included in the rent, or what is included in your package, so to say, versus what you have to pay extra. If you have to pay an extra fee for some things, like maybe the sofa that's in the flat or the kitchen that's there. So that's really important to know. Then you will be discussing the prices, and you will hear them refer to something as the kalt meter, which is the cold rent, which is usually rent without any of the brain fart, any of the utilities. So it wouldn't include gas for heating, it wouldn't include water, it wouldn't include electricity, or any of the other things. So that's cold rent. And then you have warm meter, which is warm rent, and it will usually include the rent itself. You have water, heating, and Nebenkosten. Nebenkosten is like these extra costs associated with like having a flat, and those are like garbage collection. Sometimes if you have cleaning services for the main corridor, winter cleaning services, like there are a lot of random things that they can kind of put into Nebenkosten, but you have Nebenkosten to pay. Notice I did not mention electricity. Electricity is not often included in your warm meter, in your warm rent. So you need to make sure and ask the question, is it included? Because if it's not, then you need to make that connection as soon as you move into the flat, or even before you move in. Because you would hate to come to the flat and you have no outlets, you have no working current. Another thing that's not included, of course, is internet or cable. But you should definitely ask of the person there, the representative, what is the company that provides internet in that building, because that would be the easiest one for you to get at the time. The next thing you need to ask them about is your caution fee. which is basically the deposit that you would pay for the flats to so if you do damage anything like the walls or the floors, it will come out of your caution fee when you're leaving. And you should ask them if they have one, how much is it? I know the basic is about 3 months cold rent. So you really want to inquire if that needs to be paid as a lump sum at the beginning, or if you can pay it over several months. These kind of questions, because usually when you're moving or you're moving jobs, like it's a lot of work to have to pay 3 months cold rent, as well as the rent, as well as the moving of all of your stuff and furnishing. So it's usually a lot at once. So they're usually very negotiable on that in terms of when to pay it, not if to pay it. Sometimes there's no caution fee. Like for example, where I live now, I didn't have to pay a caution fee, but this is very uncommon. My landlord is somehow very trustworthy. But usually you have a caution fee to pay. So definitely look out for that. When you are looking at the ads, whether it be on the websites of eBay Kleinanzeigen or Wohnung wie gesucht, you really should pay attention to the location of the flats. Me personally, I prefer a warm flat just because I'm from the Caribbean. So I don't want to live on the ground floor, because if you live on the ground floor, which is called Erdgeschoss, you would see it would say EG Erdgeschoss. These are the ground floor units, and they tend to be directly above the cellar. The cellar gets very cold during the winter, and it stays cold even during summer. So that first flat directly above tends to be a little bit colder. This doesn't happen with all buildings, but definitely it's a thing in older buildings. So if you know that you have sensitivity to cold, maybe the Erdgeschoss is not the best place to be. For me, I've lived on Erdgeschoss and I said I would never do it again. It was extremely uncomfortable, especially in old structures. Then you have Dachgeschoss, which is actually the level directly under the roof, which means in some cases you can have this type of ceiling in your flat. And if you're a tall person, you can imagine that most of your flats would not be able to be used because it's under the roof and it's like this. So unless you want unless you want to be walking like this, it could be really uncomfortable. So that's definitely something to consider when looking at the location of the flat. I personally like to be nestled nicely between two flats, which is how I live now, because you will feel your flat will be kind of heated from the flat above as well as heated from the flat below, and you're kind of nice and cushioned in the middle, and you don't need to heat as much. So that's a nice little cheat code for that, but it's not always possible. Everybody knows about this. Everybody's trying to get into this flat in the middle there. So I guess I was just really lucky on this place. But definitely take note of that. And if you could live with a sloping ceiling, as well as consider that in summer, it's going to be very hot under the ceiling, because you're literally directly under the roof. It's a very hot place to be. So that's definitely something to consider. I usually also like to consider like the direction of the sun. Where does the sun come up? Where does it go down? Does the flat actually get direct sun? I have a lot of plants. I don't want that in the winter all of my plants are going to die because they never see the sun. So that's a really important thing to me. And it's something that you should probably also note and ask. Last but not least, I would say just kind of when you visit the place, have a general idea of the condition of the building. Because you have to think it's somewhere you want to live, and they have a lot of old properties that are not well maintained. So if you look at it and you see that you have like really old windows, just imagine that you would be losing a lot of heat through the windows, which means that you would have to heat more, which means more money from you. So it's definitely something to consider. But the major things on your list is what you have to look for in the flat. Like if they don't have those major elements, then you have a problem. Anyway, guys, so if you enjoyed this content and you would like to see more from me, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.